Listen to the sound of footsteps in the dark, to voices that may not be quite human, to the sound of screams in the night. The Haunted Cabaret, the home of all things horror, on Rhode with your host, George Garner. The Haunted Cabaret starts now.
Alice Cooper singing Poison to kick off this week's edition of the Haunted Cabaret here on Rhode Island Free Radio. I'm your host, George Garner, and we're a little light here in the studio this evening. No, not literally, just personnel-wise. We got Tony Jones behind the board as usual. To my right is Chuckles the Clown.
Good evening.
We have a room full of observers and listeners tonight. But as far as the talent at the table, like I said, we're missing Psycho Eddie, who, by the way, I hope is dead. Because where is he, Tony?
He's sick.
Yeah,
So
good.
I'm sick.
Good. That's where he belongs. Because last time he was here sick, he gave me a dose of plague that I haven't been able to throw off yet from last week. So if I'm suffering, you know how two wrongs don't make a right. And all that, I don't believe in that one bit for 1 second. Misery likes company around this table, and so if I'm going to be sneezing and coughing and my throat's going to be sore, other people better be feeling that way. But then again, though, we're also missing his show if he's not here, right? So okay, get better eventually. Suffer for another couple of weeks, then get better. How's that?
Now I'm all paranoid about getting sick, which I do not want to do.
Well, if you didn't get sick already, then I'd say I won't say definitely, but you're probably okay. You and Chuckles. Well, Chuckles can't get sick anyway. He's dead. He's reincarnated. You're right. I mean,
Oh, no, I catch your human diseases here and there. I'm not immune to those.
but it's not going to finish you off.
Oh, no, but it still sucks.
No, actually, you've caught more colds being in the refrigerator with your frozen honeys than you have been hanging around sick people outside the refrigerator. I know this for a fact. So don't try to tell me. But, Tony, I would say that if you haven't got sick yet from the germs that he was spraying around here like a Stephen King Stan fan, like last week, I think you're all right.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, anyway, at least you're all right now to, you're capable of running that board because we have a lot of important topics. Of course, I didn't know we had a lot of important topics. I thought there was only going to be one important topic for me to rant and rave on tonight. And as a matter of fact, I was going to be peeved to such an extent that, I brought my wife here to sit in the studio and, monitor my use of expletives and bad language, to keep us safe from the SEC.
Is that why you have one of those electrocution collars around your neck so you can just press the button, you'll get zapped?
Oh, you noticed that. You mean I thought it was just an endearment of affection lately that she's been calling me you dog. Well, yeah, okay. I don't know. So we go with the most important to the least important?
Yeah.
According to some... Okay, most important. Happy birthday, Alice Cooper. Now, Chuckles, you're probably... as much as I admire Alice Cooper, you're probably the biggest Alice Cooper fan here. Do you want to mention the gentleman's age, or does he want to forget, and so we'll forget as a courtesy?
I dare not mention the guy's age, just in case he is listening to us. I don't want to insult him.
Well, it wouldn't be an insult. It'd just be...
Well, he wants to stay 18 forever. Don't you know the song?
Well, yes,
18?
that's what I'm saying. So, right. In other words, it wouldn't be an insult. We just don't want to throw cold, hard facts at him.
No, let's not.
Right.
Do
As
that.
long as he doesn't realize how old he is, he'll stay with us. That's the important thing.
Yeah, let's keep it like that.
Yeah. I think Stan Lee, finally slipped off this mortal coil when people started mentioning, oh, wow, look how good he looks for 95. Then that was the end of him. He thought he was 16, right, mentally.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Stan Lee. Okay, now, the other important anniversary musically, Tony, you mentioned that the Ramones released a landmark album in more ways than one.
Yeah. End of the Century came out today in 1980. 1 year before I was born.
Yep, and it disturbs me to mention that I bought it in plastic fresh off the shelf. Yeah, produced by Phil Spector, the Ramones have that achievement of note that they survived a recording session with Phil Spector without being shot, raped, assaulted.
Although pretty damn close.
Supposedly, yeah, right? The stories say that, he pulled a gun on him and held him at gunpoint.
Yeah, he tried to pistol whip Joey Ramone.
Yeah, and the ironic thing was Joey Ramone, by all reports, was the one that wanted to work with him the most and was most cooperative.
Yep.
So, maybe he was just maybe he was just a bully and he was pistol whipping the one least capable of defending himself.
Yeah, that's why he had to eat his riboflavin.
Yeah, because I think it was Johnny Ramone that Phil Spector made do like 40 or 50 takes of one guitar chord for the beginning of Rock and Roll High School. So I think it was Johnny and Dee Dee that really wanted to kick his ass and looked like maybe they were capable of it. So that's why he probably threatened poor Joey Ramone.
Here's a direct quote from Dee Dee talking about Phil Spector. He leveled his gun at my heart and then motioned for me and the rest of the band to get back into the piano room. So he just gave him the pistol wave. You don't even have to make the mental threat or you don't even have verbal threat. Just point him back in there.
I'll tell you, that's not the first time musicians have been threatened, though. I remember from back in the 1950s, the songwriting team of Leiber and Stoller, who wrote a lot of those famous songs like Elvis Presley and a lot of those old-time rockabilly guys. They were commissioned to write the soundtrack for Jailhouse Rock, Elvis Presley's movie. And I think it was like 2 days to go until the songs were needed. Mm-hmm. And they hadn't written a thing because they were elite songwriters and they really didn't take a project like this seriously. So I'm not sure if it was one of Elvis's personnel or probably the production company's personnel that just took both of them, locked them in a room literally, and told them that they needed 6 songs, and that when those 6 songs were written, you hand them out the door, and when we get those songs in our hand, then you can come out.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they were held hostage in a hotel room, I believe it was, and the Ramones were held hostage in the piano room.
I kind of went down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole the other day regarding the death of the Big Bopper and Buddy Holly, and I didn't realize that Buddy Holly carried a sidearm all the time. He's not a guy I picture just carrying a gun all the time.
He was from Texas, though.
Yeah.
No, I don't think. What kind of conspiracy rabbit hole could you find to go down on with those guys?
All kind of stuff. Yeah,
no, I don't see. Now that is now that you say that, I think I'll go on record saying that is the most silly subject for a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
I mean, back in those days, rock and roll wasn't the big business it was today. It was on the rise, but it wasn't. And Buddy Holly, even the big name performers like Buddy Holly, Elvis Presley traveled by bus in those days. Buddy, if you wanted to use an airplane, which Buddy Holly did, it wasn't a 747. I mean, that was I think it was like a little twin engine plane, and they didn't have the luxury of saying, okay, there's a storm or it's bad weather, we're missing a tour date, because they weren't in the position to do that. So that's all that happened to Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens is that they got on a plane to go to a tour date in the middle of a snowstorm.
Yeah.
I mean, no conspiracy there.
And a tour booked in the Midwest by people who had never been out to the Midwest. So they didn't even take into account how crummy the weather was.
Right. So, no, sorry, folks. No conspiracy there.
There's a lot of them, though. One of the conspiracy theories is that, they survived the plane crash, but for some reason Buddy Holly shot everyone.
Well,
I love to be a good conspiracy, but that's a bit much.
Yeah, it is. Maybe somebody was thinking of the Donner Party when they thought of that one. Maybe Buddy Holly's plane went down in the middle of the desolate wastes of Midwest. I don't know what, Nebraska, someplace, and they were snowed in the middle of a cornfield, and things get desperate. So Buddy Holly shot the others to eat them.
Ate them.
It's possible. I mean, it's just as likely they met the children of the corn out there. But. Okay, if you must have your conspiracy, there's one for you, okay? Or Buddy Holly shot himself and the others to avoid being taken prisoner by the children of the corn. How's that? All right, I've done my best. I've done my duty. Now, let's see. Now, Chuckles, you mentioned Godzilla. You mentioned your Godzilla. Well, you take the floor, but it's your Godzilla alternative to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we do what's called a G Bowl, which is Godzilla Marathon. We take 4 movies and we sit down and watch them and see which ones Godzilla is going to win and which ones Godzilla is going to be defeated in. And
now you just take them at random. How do you select the 4 movies?
Yeah, I pick them. There's no democracy there. It's like
but when you select the movies, is it at random or you have an idea?
No, it's at random.
Okay.
Unfortunately, one of them was voted, and I did have to play it. Now, my nephews, I told you this before.
Okay.
I was outnumbered, and I told you that this Godzilla movie is, to this generation, their Godzilla movie, and that was unfortunately the 2014 one.
Oh.
At least it wasn't the 90s Godzilla.
Oh, no,
At least it wasn't the 90s Zilla. Okay, so we have the 2014's Godzilla.
At least it wasn't football.
Yeah, no football. No, we had that. We had the one where it was Baragon, Mothra, and King Ghidorah was the good guy, and
Yeah, the three of them
Godzilla.
against Godzilla, the white-eyed Godzilla,
Yeah.
possessed Godzilla.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorites.
well, that's the one that he lost in. He may have defeated all the monsters, but he got defeated by the humans.
Well, it wasn't. Well, I would argue about that a little bit, that he was defeated. See, the theme of that movie is that Godzilla is the curse on Japan in payment for all the Japanese atrocities that they did to innocent people during World War II.
Right.
And every time, and this is the movie where we're finally given an explanation of why Godzilla keeps attacking Japan. Is that every new generation, when Japan becomes prosperous and successful and the people are content, he comes back because he's the curse to remind them of what was done, of all the suffering that they caused in World War II. And so what happens is he has a reign of terror for a certain length of time. And then when that time is over, he just goes back to nothing and waits for the next generation. See, that's why at the end, you remember that all through the movie, like, he couldn't be stopped until at the end, he dissolved into nothingness. Remember when the submarine commander shot the missile from inside of him through his chest? And then he sank back into the ocean at the end. And then the commander was driving the submarine toward the surface. He looks into his viewfinder, and he sees Godzilla just smiling at him as he pulls away from the apparently dying Godzilla. And then they say, "Oh, Godzilla's no longer on the radar. He's no longer on the sonar. He's gone."
Yeah.
And so Godzilla wasn't defeated. In other words, he did what he was supposed to do. He destroyed what he was supposed to. He reminded what he was supposed to remind, and then his time was over. Kind of like Cthulhu when the stars are right.
Kind of like when wrestlers go into semi-retirement.
Yeah, kind of. And then at the end, you remember the last scene in the movie is Godzilla's heart
Beating on the bottom
of the ocean.
You're right.
And you know that, when the next 20-year cycle goes, or 30, whatever it is, when it's time for him to come back again, he'll just take shape again and rise up. So,
All right.
yeah, so he wasn't defeated. That was, in other words, he actually kicked the living hell out of 3 giant monsters and the military.
He blew up King Ghidorah like 3 times.
Yeah.
King Ghidorah, though, came back from the dead like 3 times.
Yeah. Well, they only managed to defeat him when, if you remember, like the spirits of the 3 monsters entered Godzilla and canceled out that, the supernatural force.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah, that was a bit trippy. And then the other one I watched was Godzilla versus Biollante.
Well, I'll tell you, you had some good choices there on that marathon. That's another one of my favorites. I think that's an underrated movie.
Yeah, that is a good one.
My only bitch about that is that they dope Godzilla with the anti-radioactive bacteria.
Yeah, which causes him to fall face first.
Yeah, it was basically weakens him.
Yep.
So basically, he's fighting a creature that's almost immortal and twice the size of him. He's fighting that thing like drugged. So, and even then, he still manages to blow the back of its head off. So, yeah, no, he gave a good account of himself anyway. But yeah, that fight was definitely fixed.
Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of like that Muhammad Ali fight when they accused somebody of like putting the resin on the glove to blind the opponent. Yeah, that was a cheap shot. What was the last one?
That was the 2014 one. Was the last one. So we only watched the 3 of them.
Okay, now that was the length. That makes sense because that was the length of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, like I said, the 14 one, I had a couple of good scenes in it, but I was nowhere near my favorite.
No, my favorite scene of 2014 is where he opens the jaw and just
breathes the fire.
Breathes the fire and blasts the thing.
Yeah, just like I am the body language. I am sick and tired of this stupid thing.
Oh yeah. When he smashes the other one like a bug with his tail.
Yeah,
done. It had some good points to it. I know a lot of people don't like it. Like I can see where people don't like the fact that his legs are shaped up like elephant feet.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's like an animal wouldn't be able to walk with feet like that.
Right.
Oh, by the way, that one credit to the new creative team on the King of the Monsters sequel. They fixed that.
Oh, okay.
I looked at one of their newer trailers and promotional materials, and yeah, he's got the long claws on his hands, and he's got like he's got the dinosaur feet with
He doesn't have the cankles of a middle-aged woman anymore.
No, he's got the regular the three-toed monster dinosaur feet.
He had legs like Hillary Clinton.
I know, that was disturbing. But no, I'll tell you, I saw a couple of new trailers for the King of the Monsters. It looks like it's shaping up a little bit. I'm still worried about the story. Well, just like in 2014, the big problem with Godzilla 2014 was that after the scientist and his wife are killed in the nuclear power plant accident at the beginning, they're the only two people you care about. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody was hoping that it was going to be, the scientist's, wife is killed in the nuclear accident caused by Godzilla, and then it's him wanting revenge on Godzilla, and that was going to be the main story.
Right.
Instead, he's killed, like he's a big name actor, so he gets to be killed in the first 15 minutes, so they don't have to pay him. I think that's what happened.
That's
there.
a wrap.
That's a wrap. But yeah, then the rest of the people in the movie you don't care about, really. You really don't, except you want it to be casualties.
Well, that to me is a typical Godzilla movie. I don't care about the people.
Well, I'll say that's one reason I like the one we were just describing, giant monster all-out attack with Godzilla versus Ghidorah, Mothra, and Baragon, is because I really did like the leader of the admiral that led the attack on Godzilla, the captain of the submarine.
All right.
I really, and him and his daughter, and there was some actual characters in there, that I thought they made actually interesting characters in that movie. One of the few times.
Yeah, that got annoying in Biollante, the floating mirror ship that was going after Godzilla for a good portion of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's just going to turn it to junk.
And he did.
And the best part of it was kind of like a Ford or a General Motors project from back in the 1980s. We're improving it this time. And it had been destroyed in Godzilla 85. So then they retooled it, and it was bigger and better and improved. And it didn't last as long in Biollante as it did in Godzilla 85.
Yeah.
Oh, this mirror is to reflect Godzilla's ray back at him. And yeah, it did exactly that for about 30 seconds before it caught on fire. I'll tell you, the Japanese build junk. They built junk for a long time in real life, and they build junk in Godzilla movies. I mean, think about it. Let's say all the things they've tried to come up with. I mean, that stupid, reflective mirror. What was the name of that machine from Godzilla 85 and Biollante? They had the.
I don't remember the name.
Remember,
of the machine.
they had the name of the flying machine itself. I forget, but they built that thing. All through the 90s, they built junk to try to fight Godzilla with. They built those stupid Mesa rays, did nothing. Then they built Mechagodzilla, this giant robot Mechagodzilla, who was junk. I mean, by the end of the movie, his arms are ripped off. He's melted.
Wasn't until they stuck the bones of Godzilla in him and used those as a structure. Then he was
stronger.
And he was badass.
Then he was a better fighter. Then he was badass. Then he also went out of control of the Japanese and started destroying the cities on his own.
Right.
So as soon as you make something that badass, you've still screwed up because now it's going to attack you. So it's like a rule in Japan. A giant unstoppable monster is going to attack you, not be on your side. But yeah, I mean, my favorite Mechagodzilla, now that you've got me on the Godzilla, is not those movies from the 90s, but the original Mechagodzilla that they made during the 70s, when it wasn't just a big giant robot with a human crew in it, but it was, they took the brain cells of a human being, of the scientist's daughter, and they put the human brain cells in among Mechagodzilla's cybernetic circuits.
Oh, that's cool, actually.
Yeah. And they hypnotized the scientist's daughter to get angry and hateful. And when she got mad and hateful, Mechagodzilla got mad and hateful. And yeah, especially remember Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Right.
And yeah, her eyes lit up, and then Mechagodzilla's eyes lit up, and he cut loose and just blasted like everything in sight. But yeah, and that was because it was a human. It was a cybernetic robot, cyborg powered by human emotions, which made it, and human emotions are more deadly than mechanicals.
Especially female human emotions.
Exactly. Yep. And yeah, I remember that was a good ending to that movie too. They only stopped even Godzilla was going to lose, but he was going to lose to Mechagodzilla that time, no question about it. Except that the daughter, whose mind was controlling Mechagodzilla, broke the alien's hypnotism and shot herself to death, and that's the only way that Godzilla survived that fight. So that was a cool. I mean, it wasn't great all the way through. That it had that stupid looking monster Titanosaurus in it.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't need him, really. I mean, they really didn't. Although, it had a couple of good scenes in it. But no, Titanosaurus we don't need. Not one of my favorites. Well, of course, the reason that he was in the movie in the first place was that he would attack Godzilla. Then Mechagodzilla, being a sneak, would just wait till Godzilla was locked up with Titanosaurus and then sucker shot him from behind. Which was pretty cool. Then until finally Godzilla got sick of it at the end, just grabbed Titanosaurus, flung him like yesterday's newspaper out of the way. And then, but like I say, nope, it's still, if that girl hadn't killed herself, that Godzilla was going to lose that fight. No absolute question about it. That was the one that he was going to lose. And I think that was the only one, right? Because I don't think Godzilla, now he fought Destroyer.
Yeah.
And that was but even that, he didn't lose. It was kind of a standstill. Because he fought, the military ended up killing Destroyer, but Godzilla fought him to a standstill. Is there any movie in all Godzilla's long history where, I'm saying, it was a stand-up, straight-up fight, and he just went down and lost? I don't think so.
No. I guess someone would step back and say Kong and Godzilla, but...
Yeah, they fell in the water. Godzilla...
it never surfaced.
Yeah, he didn't resurface. Kong swam away, but...
Right.
That's not conclusive.
No, that's not.
That just means that Godzilla was sick of, carrying King Kong for like an hour and a half movie.
Yeah, and Godzilla and King Kong, Biollante wasn't a fair fight because he got drugged up. So
right.
If it was fair, he probably would have tore the plan apart. But
yeah, like I said, I don't think so. I think other than Terror of Mechagodzilla, where he would have definitely lost to Mechagodzilla, I think that was the only time. Now, Mothra's defeated him a couple of times, as in, again, knocked him, tossed him in the ocean, but yeah, never a decisive victory.
Now, I don't want to say that I'm fat, but did I notice that there was a Godzilla-themed cake at your gathering yesterday?
There was, and she did a very good job.
Sounds awesome.
My sister made a Godzilla cake with him holding a football and destroying the goalpost.
You wouldn't happen to have a...
I can find pictures for
Snapchat,
that. Yeah, I can find pictures of that. Yeah, she did that, and
just my own curiosity. I mean, if you want to,
sounds cool.
We made all Japanese dishes. So we sat down to a buffet of Japanese food and watched Godzilla crush the living crap out of things. So could care less about the Super Bowl.
I'll tell you. See, if I wasn't actually a fan of the game of football, I mean, it gets more tempting every year. This event that you throw. This has the potential to grow into something major. And what's it called again? It's
G-Bowl.
G-Bowl. The G-Bowl. Very simple, very direct, and yeah, I'll tell you. Tony, why do we have so many good ideas come out of this studio and we're not rolling in Bill Gates?
I'd be happy just to be rolling in some of that cake.
I don't. So, well, all right, Chuckles, put Tony to rest here one way or the other. Is there any more of that cake?
There is. I have some more at home. And I think my sister might have some as well.
Okay, the question
big.
The question then is, why don't you have anything on that desk for our own Tony Jones?
Because I am selfish and didn't want to share it.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, unfortunately, this is only an audio medium. But yeah, Chuckles, you post some of this on Rhode Island Free Radio. This is
holding the football and about to trash the goalpost.
In the meantime, let's get back to the music for a second. We got a good playlist. I want to get to at least some of it. What do we got here? Ramones from that very same End of the Century album, 50 years ago, released today. This Ain't Havana on Rhode Island Free Radio.
I had no adventure.
All right, that was the Ramones off End of the Century. This Ain't Havana, the Phil Spector produced album that followed up on Rock and Roll High School, the Ramones' one and only film. Back in, what year was that, Tony?
1980. Well, it came out in 80, so I assume
came out
they
in
recorded
80,
it in
yeah.
79.
Yep, and yeah, that's an album. It's, you know, with polar opposites in it. Some of the Ramones, a handful of the Ramones, really good songs, and I hate to say it, but, you know, telling it like it is, you know, 2 or 3 of the only bad songs that the Ramones ever recorded. I mean, really, right? I mean, how many songs can we say the Ramones recorded over their whole career that these suck? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll tell you, a lot less than most other bands that have been around that long. No question about it. I don't know of many other bands that had their success record as far as putting out.
And when I think about the fact that Phil Spector offered to produce Rocket to Russia, but whatever happened, it didn't work out.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness that Phil Spector didn't ruin Rocket to Russia.
Yeah, because, Rocket to Russia was probably, I mean, there's a little debate on this, but, I mean, there's some people that favor the first album being the best album of all time for the Ramones, but I think it probably is Rocket to Russia because the production values are a little higher. Now, granted, it's the Ramones. Granted, it was quintessential roots punk rock, but I don't know. Is it just me, or is the first Ramones album in its original form almost unlistenable?
Well, I mean, they spent like no money to produce it.
Well, yeah.
At the time, you know, bare bones, you know, microphone in the middle of the room, Sun Records type deal. Yeah,
I mean, and, you know, credit where it's deserved for even coming out with it. But, I mean, nowadays, you know, maybe it's just I'm guilty of my ear being attuned a little better, you know, just like most listeners, but yeah, it's really, it's tough listening. As a matter of fact, 3 of my favorite bands, being the Ramones, Kiss, and Blue Oyster Cult, all 3 of their debut albums, all 3 of them recorded in, well, Blue Oyster Cult and Kiss early 1970s, Ramones mid 1970s. Yeah, as one listener said about the early Kiss albums, you know, we understand they didn't have much money, but did they have to record them underwater?
And the thing is, and I hate to say it because I know folks out there spend a lot of money on these, but the remastered ones don't sound any better. Maybe a little bit better, but they don't sound that much better, and people pay a lot of money for those, especially the remastered vinyls. Yeah,
I mean, the amount, the increment that it sounds better. Yeah. Well, the Ramones album, it's understandable, like you said, and you can't work with what isn't there.
Yeah.
It's not like you were in a professional studio with good, you know, facilities and just a bad engineer. You know what I'm saying? In other words, they literally had, you know, nothing. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, they did their best with nothing. And you can't enhance nothing. Now, I've heard, well, the first Kiss album you can't do anything with either. They've tried, believe me. I mean, they've tried to squeeze money out of that thing like water out of a rock. It can't. It sounds awful. It really sounds awful. Blue Oyster Cult, they did the same thing. They tried to remaster it. the best they could, but they put out a Best of the Boys to Cult a few years back, and there's a couple of tracks from the first couple of albums mixed in there with "Don't Fear the Reaper" and God's. You can't. It just,
Now,
it's
in the Ramones' defense regarding the first.
Well, I don't think
album,
we really have to. We're not defending. We don't have to defend them. They tried their best.
And they were on Sire Records at the time, and
Right.
if you listen to any other album during the first few years of Sire Records, everything sounds like crap. So it's not particularly the Ramones that had a tough time. If you listen to the Dead Boys, some of that early Talking Heads stuff. This is Sire Records is an independent label long before Warner Brothers bought them out.
Right.
And they were struggling.
See, you still have to wonder though, because I don't know. We're talking the mid '70s for the Ramones, and even early '70s for these other bands. Now the Ramones, it was later '70s. I mean, bands like Kiss, Blois, The Cult. Now, yes, they hadn't reached the heights of fame yet, but they were being produced by major record labels.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but bands like the Beatles and the Beach Boys and a couple of others that escape my recollection, they came up with some really high quality sounding stuff.
I mean, especially the Beach Boys.
Yeah, I mean, glad you said that. The Beach Boys, I would much rather listen to old Beach Boys tracks than old Beatles tracks. They remastered those Beatles tracks and made them sound better for a reason. And I don't care if every Beatles fan on the face of this planet doesn't want to admit, they changed it. Well, no, they made it sound like it was supposed to. That's what they did on the remasters with the Beatles. But, I mean, but that's the only thing. That's, I'll have a little complaint for, the mainstream bands in the early 70s. The technology was there. I mean, I think in the case of a lot of those early 70s mainstream bands, it was more a case of crappy engineers.
Yeah.
And just not making, or maybe the engineers hadn't caught up with the technology like they should have.
And then it gets even worse when you get into some of the earlier new wave stuff, because it's almost impossible to make all that synth sound good with a band on low quality equipment with an engineer that doesn't know what they're doing. It just sounds all like a Nintendo soundtrack. Makes me want to play Tetris.
Yeah, maybe that was part of the problem that I had with the whole when they came up with the marketing term new wave. Yeah, most of the bands under that marketing term, they sounded like that because of that. Yeah. Although there were exceptions. I mean, again, a good producer, a good engineer makes all the difference. I mean, B-52's first album.
Yeah.
That sounds, like it's from a decade or two later.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing wrong with
Same thing
that.
with early Cars.
Early Cars. Geez, I'll tell you, the early Cars, that's not usually my preferred style of music. But I do have a great fondness for that album. As a matter of fact, I was just listening to that in the car stereo this past week. That album, you can listen to it from beginning to end. I mean, I think that's one of the few perfect rock albums. One of the few perfect rock albums ever, I think, really. There's not a bad song on it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of others. Rocket to Russia by the Ramones. The Cars' first album. Black Sabbath, their first couple of albums. I mean, I could go on, but that Cars album, that is an accomplishment. It really is. It's too bad that band. What was the fate of the Cars? They just fought among themselves.
Yeah, one guy died, and then they fought amongst themselves, and then they came back a few years ago with all the original members except for the bass player who passed away.
Uh-huh.
But then Rick Ocasek, kind of went out and did his own thing again.
Okay, so basically it was the same nonsense that doesn't let
pretty much
most
what
bands
befalls
have
every
an
other
extended
band.
career.
Yeah.
Oh well. All right, let's on that sour note. Let's go back to the music. Let's do some Whiskey in the Jar, and this is the good one. This is the Thin Lizzy version, right, Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah, here on the Haunted Cabaret on Rhode Island Free Radio.
mountains. I saw Captain Pharaoh and his money he was counting. I first produced my pistol and then produced my rapier. I said, stand over, deliver on the devil, he may take you. Rush your ring, dama-doo-dama-da. Wait for my daddy-o. Wait for my daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar-o. Money, and it was a pretty penny. I took all of his money and I brought it home to Molly. She swore that she loved me, never would she leave me. But the devil take that woman, for you know she treat me easy. Must you ring, dama-doo-dama-da. Wait for my daddy-o. Wait for my daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar-o. I went to Molly's chamber, taking my Molly with me, and I never knew the danger. For about 6 or maybe 7, in walked Captain Pharaoh. I jumped up, fired up my pistols, and I shot him with both barrels. Mush a ring, dama-doo-dama-da. Wait for my daddy-o. Wait for my daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar-o. Now some men like the fishing, and some men like the fowling, and some men like to hear a cannonball rolling. But me, I like sleeping, especially in my Molly's chamber. But here I am in prison, here I am with a ball and chain, yeah. Much a ring, dama-doo-dama-da. Wait for my daddy-o. Wait for my daddy-o. There's whiskey in the jar-o. And I got drunk on whiskey-o. And I loved
Whiskey in the Jar, a song often recorded by other bands, but that might be the definitive version. Although I will say, as much as I dislike Metallica, they took a good shot at it. But no, I'll go with the Thin Lizzy version. Now we get to we're coming toward the end of the program, which brings me to my complaint, my bitch, and my rant, which I promised at the beginning of the show. If you hadn't gotten me off on all these other interesting topics, Alice Cooper, the Ramones, Godzilla, I mean, this would have happened already, and it's about to happen now. Here's the problem. I saw a trailer during, and you were watching Godzilla, so you didn't see it. But I was watching the Super Bowl on my smartphone, and I saw an advertisement trailer for Captain Marvel. I saw it. Marvel's, not Shazam, Marvel's Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, who appeared in Giant-Sized Avengers, and who I immediately fell into infatuation with back in those long ago days. She could turn herself into a streak of light. She could, all these other amazing powers. And first and foremost, she was a 6-foot, cool-looking black chick with a short afro and didn't take crap from anybody. That's Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel in this trailer, and maybe it was just a freak of Super Bowl programming. Maybe they put the wrong thing on there. Maybe this was just a little exercise or a trial balloon that they renounced and didn't do. But the trailer I saw on the Super Bowl was Captain Marvel as a blonde bimbo. A blonde, pale-skinned bimbo with lighting up and sailing or flying around like Supergirl, and actually a hideous resemblance to Supergirl. And this is what I perceive to be the Captain Marvel of this new film. Am I right?
You're right.
They're not fooling. This wasn't just like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick saying, hey, let's mess with that guy that's been sitting over there in Killingly, Connecticut for years, waiting for one of his favorite heroes, Captain Marvel, to be brought to the, not the Shazam Captain Marvel, but the real one, to be brought to the screen and given big treatment, the Disney Marvel awesome treatment that they gave the Avengers. Let's just screw with that guy. So the Patriots got together and they made a film trailer of this blonde Supergirl bimbo and called it Captain Marvel just to fool me. That didn't happen?
Maybe in your universe, but no, it didn't.
So you're telling me this is real?
This is real.
Now, how do I tear into this first? Let's see. Disney, who has been accused of racism in the past, to the point where in the superhero movies, well, not just Disney, but so all of them, right? They take characters from other supergroups, let's say not mention any, but we'll mention the Fantastic Four, right? They put a black member in the Fantastic Four, just so they can say there's a black person on the screen in the Fantastic Four, right? That's how desperate. In Netflix's Lost in Space, Judy Robinson is black for some reason that escapes me, okay? In an otherwise white family. We have a character from Marvel, the Marvel Universe, right, who is black, whose identity as a black person is a big part of her character. They bring her to the screen in 2019, and they make her a white blonde bimbo. I mean, is there any explanation besides just my, distaste for the change? Is there any logical, sane reason why they did this? Chuckles.
I think they did it just to piss you off. They woke up one morning.
That was my original theory.
And so there'll be more blonde bimbos walking around Comic-Con.
Like we don't have enough. We don't have enough. We do not have enough blonde bimbos walking around Comic-Con. No, really. You know what I'm saying? And it just brings it to mind. I mean, the Black Panther, if I'm not mistaken, was a black superhero, right?
Yep.
I think that film did moderately well, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. So the next thing you do when you have the opportunity to legitimately bring a black character to the screen is you don't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, what were they thinking?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
See, it's that kind of insight why we have Chuckles the Clown on the Haunted Cabaret. Tony, do you have any insight on this?
No, not at all. The only thing I can think of is that they're trying to appeal to...
to what? And who?
Well, it's going to be PG, right? So it's not going to be that interesting of a movie. And I think they're trying to get that next young audience in front of the movie.
So, in other words, because Supergirl failed, and did it fail, by the way? Right, because they did a Supergirl series, right, a TV series.
No, that's doing good, the Supergirl series.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why. Maybe they want another blonde, pale superhero. Oh, but there's going to be no young black people. But like I say, but the Black Panther was black. Oh, I get a sarcastic comment from the viewers and listeners in the studio, right? But I mean, is that possible? Is that they figured it would be a much bigger audience if the person was a blonde bimbo instead of black right after the Black Panther? Or maybe because it's female?
I don't know.
It's hard to tell because they go into production at the same time, so that movie was probably filmed alongside Black Panther, not after Black Panther. So
Right.
See, I'm looking at some old pictures here, and she's a blonde bimbo. So I don't know. Maybe it's from a different universe that they're using this, but I'm looking at pictures of her, and
Let me see. Because, I mean, unless... No, that's a later one.
Well, that's not too much later. That's only... Oh, that's 80s, 90s, so it's not too late. Well,
Okay.
Now you're going into Captain Marvel.
The other Captain Marvel.
See, I don't know.
I mean, like I say, I mean, my brain hasn't deteriorated completely, and I remember there was it was Captain Marvel's debut was in Giant-Sized Avengers. I remember because as a kid I paid more for that.
Right.
I had to scrape up the change, and it was Captain Marvel, and she had a white uniform, like neck to ankle uniform, leotard, with like a lightning bolt or something on it, and a headband. And an afro.
In Giant Size Avengers, right?
Probably. Yeah, I believe so. I mean,
It says Giant Size Special.
yeah, because every so often, I think it was quarterly, there was a giant-sized Avengers.
They still have her, and that's an older one. They still have her as a blonde.
You're not looking at Ms. Marvel.
I understand that, but
No, I'm saying, is there Ms. Marvel also?
Yeah, I think that's what one that they're using is Ms. Marvel.
See, this is two different things. Yeah, let me see Ms. Marvel again, Chuckles.
That I'm
looks
pretty
like
sure
the character
that's
they
the one
made
they're
movie
using.
about. Yeah. No, there's the one I'm talking about. She was called Captain Marvel.
Okay, so now I do see a Captain Marvel in that one, and she is African American.
She's African American. That's the person I'm talking about.
So are they using Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel?
It sounds like, well, they're calling the movie. Are they calling the movie Captain Marvel?
Let's see.
It sounds like what they're doing is they're crossing two characters.
I think they are.
Right, they're using the title Captain Marvel, but the portrayal is of Ms. Marvel.
Yeah,
because
it's called Captain Marvel, but yeah, they have
that's a Ms. Marvel
outfit.
portrayal.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, we solved the situation. Okay, so I'm not sure if I want to take back that rant though. Anyway, because they just lifted they just blended a name from one character and the portrayal from the rest of the character from somebody else. I think they would have gone. No, I'm not canceling any of that rant because they're calling it Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel in the Marvel Universe is the African American woman I described. That's who she is. I mean, granted, yes, calling something Ms. Marvel was stupid then and it's stupid now. I mean, yeah, I don't think they want to release anything called Ms.
Maybe that's what it is.
No, that's no. No, thanks, Chuckles. You just solved the question. Yeah. Yep. They took the name of one of my favorite Marvel heroes and attached it to one of my least favorites. That's basically what they did. Okay. Yeah, makes me want to. I wish we had not played Alice Cooper's Poison yet, because. All right, but. Are we about? I'm completely disoriented now by what they've done to me. Are we near the end of the show now, Tony?
Yeah, we're almost at the top of the hour.
Okay, 3 more minutes to go.
Yep.
All right, let's go. All right, in honor of Alice Cooper's birthday, we've got The First and Last by Alice Cooper. This is off probably, along with Welcome to My Nightmare. This is probably off my favorite Alice Cooper album. This is It My Body? His second major studio album from way, way back, too far for me to want to remember, on the Haunted Cabaret on Rhode Island Free Radio. Nighty night. Oh, sons of bitches.
What have I got that makes you want to love